Hey guys, BJ and GameDay back, first episode of 2019 for NRL Supercoach. Look, a little bit of a different setting this year. Hopefully anyone obviously who's at home who followed our videos last year for me and Brent, thanks very much for tuning in week after week, subscribing, everything like that. We were pretty happy with how the first season went. Unfortunately, I've moved. I've actually moved to Brizzy. From Canberra, so we won't be able to put together the videos with both me and Brent this year. We're going to try and do something where we can collaborate together, but until we actually figure out how to do that, neither of us are exactly the most tech savvy. So we'd love to do something ESPN-like where we link to link and stuff, but in all honesty, we've got no idea how we do it. So anyone at home, guys, if you guys have any tips, can point us in the right direction, we'd love to know, because you know, for people who obviously do follow us and you know, follow our thoughts on Supercoach, we'd love to keep that going and to keep you guys in the loop. But obviously with the start of the season, massive year in the Supercoach last year. For me, I was pretty happy. I finished around 700, so it wasn't looking too good there for a lot of the season, but came home pretty strong. And I think Brent was actually the opposite. He was pretty much sort of entrenched in the top 1,000, top 2,000 for a lot of the way there, and then just sort of fell away towards the end of the season. But 2019 brings another year of challenges, another year of new rookies, new players, senior players going out of the game, and just a few questions that we need to ask and try and find the answers to. So what I thought I'd do was start with a bit of a recap, not a recap, but basically a preview of all the teams in the comp. And just sort of look at the players that can make an impact, their guns, their cheapies, their sort of mid-rangers, maybe a few pods in each team. So over the next sort of 3 weeks before the season starts, going to run through all 16 teams, just going to do 2 each episode. So this episode, I've just prepared some notes on the Broncos and the Warriors. Being that I've just moved to Brizzy, I thought why not get the Broncos out of the way first. And actually probably one of the most intriguing teams in the comp at the moment, just with the coaching changes. Obviously, with the straight switch with Wayne Bennett and Anthony Seibold, I'm really expecting some massive things from the Broncos this season. I know a lot of people looked at the Broncos last season. Look, they finished 1 win out of the top 4. Obviously, 4 teams finished tied last year for first, and then 4 teams tied for fifth. So I really can see the Broncos competing this year. They really haven't lost too much manpower. I mean, I know Semi Thaiday retired, Josh Maguire's gone to the Cowboys, and obviously the big thing is their coach, you know, a new coach with Anthony Seibold. But look, last season he did such a fantastic job at the Rabbitohs. I really think his return to Brisbane as the head coach after being an assistant coach for a few years could really work wonders. I'm really seeing blokes like Anthony Milford bounce back. And hopefully they can sort of get a few of those young gun forwards to really step up. So, look, just to run through the team, bit of a weird one with the Broncos. They don't really have any guns. If we're looking at the price categories that are available now, look, obviously Damien Cook headlining the season, 726 odd thousand. The highest priced Broncos player is Jermaine Asako at 521,000. Now, Jermaine Asako last year wasn't a household name. Definitely forced his way into that squad. His goal kicking is absolutely sensational. This guy, along with Reece Martin, really stood up as 2 of the sharpshooters in the comp last season. So, look, if he brings that form into the comp, if he can advance his running game like he sort of started to throughout the year last year, I really think he can be another driving force in this comp. Depending on how he finishes is the big thing for the Broncos. So obviously those tries is the big way to get Supercoach points and things like that. So I'd really love to see him be able to cross the stripe just that little bit more. I know he had a massive game last year. I think he scored 3 tries in 1 game and went huge. I think if we can see that 2 or 3 more times in the year, and then a few more consistent scores around that sort of 70 to 80, he'll really sort of cement himself as the centre wing, basically the premium centre wing in the comp. He's ranked 54th out of total players. Beyond that, Broncos have got about another 7 or 8 players in the top 100. So consistently across the board, they rank okay, but with no one really excelling in Supercoach. And I really think that's a Wayne Bennett factor. Wayne Bennett factor has such a great balance in all of his teams, but he does have, I guess, a defensive background in all those teams as well. He really looks at that try line defence and to make that as best as possible. I think the addition there of Anthony Seibold will see the attacking light shine through in this team. So hopefully guys like Anthony Milford, Cody Nikorima can really bounce back. Massive things need to be seen from Jack Bird this season. Signed on to the Broncos last year from my Sharks and just did not perform. Injuries, weight issues, everything like that just wasn't good enough. So the fact is that Jack's got to really perform this year, otherwise he's going to find himself on a very, very lowly contract somewhere else, because I really think if he doesn't perform this season, the Broncos are going to look at letting him go. We talked about the young guns. Now, the Broncos have probably the most exciting pack in the comp. David Fafita, Tavita Pangai Jr., Jaden Sewer. Who else we got there? Look, Payne Haas. Obviously, he's in a little bit of trouble this week. I'm not too sure whatever's behind that. I've just seen the suspension. So, boys will be boys. I guess we've probably had the off-season from hell in the NRL. A lot of bad publicity. Benny Barber, Jack DeBellin, Jared Hayne. Probably not the best start to the season we want. And Todd Greenberg's, well, he's not pulling out his hair because he's got none left. But really, really tough off-season for the NRL. So hopefully these guys, once the footy comes around, they can bounce back and show us what we all love them for. And you know, as I say, these guys are young, but it's no excuse. They're in the limelight. They've got to be role models. So hopefully these guys can work together, go under Anthony Seibold and really perform on the field, and then take that performance off the field and start to do some good things. Look, I'm really excited by David Fafita. That performance in the All-Stars game the other night, just watching the highlights, he had a blinder. I really think, look, price-wise, it's a little bit hard with these guys. Tavita, $500,000, injury-prone last season. You know, Fafita's not too far behind him. It's hard because do you start with them early and hope that they really excel and sort of hit that 600, 650k mark and just try and get some cash out of them? They may become cheapy. We look at Viliami Kikau last year for the Panthers. He shot through the roof and then just sort of kept going. He didn't really fall into a lull. So definitely something got to look there with the young guns. Former guns. To the other end of the scale with the Broncos, Anthony Milford. Now, look, I hate to say it, but he's probably going to go through his career as an underachiever. So much promise. Doesn't really sort of get any bad headlines. I mean, he had that Queensland Origin sort of scuffle where a few of the lads, you know, got suspended from the squad for that season. But I mean, in the end, he just seems like a quiet young lad. You know, personally, I don't know him, but I think he's really sort of got to step up this season. With him and Cody Nikorima, they've really haven't had that general around the park. You know, that Joey Johns, that Jonathan Thurston, you know, the Cooper Cronks. Neither of those guys play that role. So one of them has got to step up. Obviously, you'd probably look at Milford first, just with his track record, his brilliance. You know, you're sort of looking at him in the Sean Johnson mould. But look, Sean Johnson obviously has done it for the past few years at the Warriors, and I'm sure he'll continue to do it at the Sharks. Matt Gillette, look, probably the season from hell for him last year. How he played those weeks with a broken neck, you know, obviously it's you know, regardless of the severity, you know, it's not the major thing. He wasn't in a wheelchair, but, you know, however it was, stress fractures, whatever it was, like, the guy's just tough. So hopefully he's had the right rehabilitation. Cheap as, low 400s, you know. This is a guy who's week in, week out performed previously in Supercoach. You know, Queensland Origin stalwart, so you really can't sort of back him down if he does come back. Look, if this guy performs in round 1, 2 or 3, he is a must to get in your team before the team list jump up. The prices jump up, because this guy, yeah, he's got sort of 600, 650 written all over him if he's in form. The other one that I want to look at is James Roberts. Now, again, probably in the Anthony Milford mold, where they haven't, it sort of hasn't really shone through as much as you thought he would. I know, as I talked about earlier, Wayne Bennett team seem to be a little bit more concentrated on defence. And I know that when he went there from the Titans, that was really what Wayne Bennett wanted to do his first season or two, was develop him as a defensive centre, because we know how lightning quick he is. But I just think it's sort of dragged him into a little bit of a hole. Hopefully Anthony Seibold can bring that out in him and get him back to his attacking best. Look, obviously a team full of players we've seen in past super coaches. Those guys, your Fensoms, McCulloch, Oates. Nick Arima's performed well in the past, although not consistently. And also, obviously, the doubt around Jack Bird, what he is actually going to produce. So, some good players there. No one you'd actually think, all right, I've got to have them in my squad. But definitely some potential. Again, does Anthony McCulloch play 80 minutes? Where's he at health-wise? Again, he's one in the last couple of seasons who's had some injuries. Corey Oates last year with all the doubt around his contract. What's the go there? So look, some wait and sees. Definitely some round 3 watches with the young fellas in the guns, the young guns in the second row to see if we bring them in. One guy who's nowhere to be seen, and look, this is probably because he won't get a spot in the back line. He's gone up there from South. He's followed his coach in Richie Kenner. Now, look, whether Corey Oates plays the wing, whether he plays second row, whether Jermaine Asako, stays on the wing, maybe he gets a chance at fullback, Darius plays somewhere else. I'm not too sure the makeup of this team, but Richie Kenner, look, he's gone through the Melbourne Storm education. He's gone through their system. He's gone through to South, played well at South, some good performances. He's got the nod at the wing and the trial spots, obviously without those other guys in there. So definitely could force himself into the team. But he's actually not even in Supercoach. He is not in the list of Supercoach. That was when I checked the other day. Whether he's been added since, I'm not too sure. One of the young lads who performed well in the weekend with the trial that they played out in Warwick against just one of the Queensland Cup teams, South Logan, was Tom Dearden, young 17-year-old guy at halfback. Now, it's a hard thing nowadays. The Joey Johnsons and the JTs don't come around too often, so we really put a lot of pressure on our young halfbacks. Tom Dearden is another one. Now, this kid is 17, scored a double in that trial, albeit it was against South Logan. Look, neither team really had their full-strength team. South Logan feeder club now for the Broncos, so these guys are basically playing the second-string team of what they had, which is the fourth-string team of the Broncos. So, look, take it with a grain of salt, but this kid could be something. Maybe something to watch out with. Whether he can force himself into the team with the likes of Nick Arima there in Milford, may need another season or two. Like I say, he is only 17, so one to watch out for, but probably not this season. So that's the Broncos in a nutshell for mine. Moving across to the Warriors. Now, so many questions here. Look, one, I can't believe they let SJ go. Look, I'm not too sure what Stephen Kearney was thinking, but Sean Johnson has been the best player in that team. I know RTS won the Dally M last year, but the fact is that he was on the end of every play. Defensively, RTS was just amazing last season. The amount of one-on-one stops he made over the goal line was phenomenal. But the fact is that Sean Johnson, anything good that came about that team was when he was on the paddock. That right side, he just destroys guys. Like, this guy is playing touch footy, everyone else is playing tackle. He is phenomenal. So, massive signing for the Sharks. They're in a little bit of salary crap drama, which is well documented. Whether he gets to start for the start of the season, I hope he does for my boys. But the fact that the Warriors let him go, I'm not too sure what the story is behind there. There's got to be more than the papers are reporting, because this guy is dead set $1 million a year. I'd pay him $1 million, $2 million for. He is a major signing for Cronulla, and the Warriors, I think, are just going to get hurt. They're definitely going to fall more around the wooden spoon. And not only that fact that they got rid of Sean Johnson, but Mason Lino. Like, every time Sean Johnson was out last season, which I think was about 5 or 6 games, Mason Lino came on and played absolutely massive. One of the first games Sean Johnson was out for last season was against the Roosters in Sydney. And I think the Warriors won at 34-0, and Lino was absolutely huge. So for the Knights to pick him up, great backup for Pearce, great backup for Connor Watson. Again, the guy's got to be feeling pretty rubbish, that he keeps playing second string to everyone, but that's just how competitive it is in the NRL at the moment. But this kid can definitely play. So the Warriors have basically lost those two guys. I've got massive doubts around Blake Green as a general. I think he's a great Robin. He's not Batman. He can basically be a sidekick, but he just doesn't have that brilliance. He doesn't have the leadership qualities of being there and being the number one. So look, talk about Chanel Tavita Harris. Obviously coming on, this young fella. He's a cheapie, 168,000 if everyone's looking. Well documented since the start of the season. Another guy who's come through, I don't know much about, is that Adam Kieran, however you say his last name. So there'll be a little bit of competition between those guys for that halfback spot next to Blake Green in the 6. But I just can't see the Warriors being as effective this season. They've lost Simon Mannering, and while Mannering didn't have the biggest season last year, he's still been their captain for the last 10, 12 years. Tohu Harris is going to lose his effectiveness. No Sean Johnson to run off the side of, so he might even play 6 and Blake Green in the 7. I'm not too sure. But the combination they had on the right-hand side last year, Sean Johnson to Harris, to Peter Hiku, to David Fusatua, was just lethal. The amount of tries these guys were going through. As the season wore on, it became a little bit less effective, but every game it was a danger. So definitely something they're going to miss this season. What else we got? Couple of shining lights last season. Isaiah Papali went well. Jazz Tavanga was good. I actually got a lot of money out of him last season. Brought him in at about 240,000, and I think he ended up the season in the high 400s. Just an active guy. Just one of those guys you love in Supercoach because they're always tackling, they're always running, they're always looking for offloads. This guy, look, Isaac Luke's there, injury prone as hell. Nathaniel Roach is there, I think. I'm not too sure. But look, this guy, Jazz Tavanga, he could be that number 9 for him. He's not a genuine number 9, I don't think. But the great thing about him is he's got the flexibility to play second row, lock, a lot like Sevilla Havili, Josh Hodgson at the Raiders. Those guys sort of swap around. So this guy's in the same mould, and he is very active, which means points in Supercoach. So he's extremely highly priced this season. I think 540 or 560,000. Definitely a no-go to start the season. But if you see him with limited minutes and he starts to slow down early, he might drop around that sort of early 400k and be worth jumping a hold of as he warms up for the season. One of the guys who's gone to the Warriors is Leeson Armout from the Dragons. Now, Leeson had some massive games last season, huge tackle breaks, huge offloads. Needs to develop his game a little bit more. It's hard to sort of say, can you do it now in the Warriors when you haven't done it for so many years in the NRL? But the potential's there. So if Stephen Kearney's the right tutor to have him under, well, hopefully he can see it. But for me, he's definitely a no-go early on in the season. Might risk him in a draft pick or something like that, but basically let him go for the first few rounds just to see how he performs and maybe assess his chances then. RTS. How do you back up a Dally M season like that? So much talk around Kalen Ponga last year before the injuries came about that he basically had it in the bag. So RTS came from the clouds, got the Dally M, and well deserved. I mean, this guy has been absolutely sensational when he was back at the Roosters. He's gone through ACL surgery and he's come out the other side, an absolutely fantastic player. Like I said earlier, his defensive capabilities, absolutely amazing. You can't say enough about the guy. Last year, put his body on the line, game after game, time after time. So he was probably one last year, if you didn't take Teddy or Turbo, that you've reaped a little bit of rewards, but his points, I guess, dropped off a little bit during the season, and a little bit less consistent than your Teddies and Turbos. So again, might be one to have a look at just as a pod. Again, most people are sort of going the Teddy route this season. Second year at the Roosters, think he'll probably perform a little bit better. And dead set he gets unicorn points. So RTS not in that boat, but again, it's a little bit hard to see how he'll perform without SJ there, creating everything for him to work off the back of. So, look, I probably won't even have him all season unless he starts banging out hundreds after hundreds, but again, the fact is that most players, even your backs and your gun backs or your gun forwards, are not going to score more than sort of 400 or 500s a season. So if he does bang out hundreds, the chances are there might only be 1 or 2 left after that. But look, that's it, guys. Broncos and Warriors. Let's see what we can do with BJ on game day. We're going to get another league going in the next week or so. I'll talk to Brent about that. We'll have the same scheme as last year. Last year we ran a 10-man league. Anyone who beat me or Brent overall, you had to finish above both of us. Got the $20. Wayne was the only one last season. Donated his $20 to the Men of League Foundation, which we passed on. So that was fantastic. We might up it this year. We might go from a 10-man league to a 20-man league. Want to make it a little bit more interesting. It'll be a little bit hard, obviously, without Brent here, but like I say, anyone got any ideas at home how we can make that link work from here in Brizzy to him down in Canberra? We'd love to give you all that information and just create that banter again and that product each week where we can give you guys some Supercoach updates. So, thanks, guys. Keep following. Anyone who hasn't yet subscribed, please subscribe. We love the followers and we'd love to get more and more views every week so that we know you guys are enjoying this at home.